lot of questions. A lot of questions. And we've actually even got a drawing that I want to share with you that came through on Twitter too.
Wow. Did you do a drawing, Bex?
I didn't do a drawing, but a lovely 6-year-old person did do a drawing and has a question attached to it. But I think, so let's bounce around with this a little bit. So, what is the coolest thing about becoming a cartoon character, Chris?
Coolest thing about becoming a cartoon character? Well, actually, it's kind of dangerous because it's far worse than looking in the mirror. It's like looking in a funhouse mirror where someone else gets to move the mirror all the time, and so
and do your voice for you.
And do my voice for me. So your entire image of yourself is in somebody else's hands. But at the same time, it's delightful. It's just fun. You know, it's like. It's very liberating now to be portrayed that way and to watch what this character is going to be able to do. It's fun all around.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I love that your moustache has its own rigging. I absolutely adore that. That's amazing.
It'll have to be in the credits.
Yeah.
Mustache played by.
Chris's
mustache.
So we have a question as well about what advice, Chris, would you give to a red-green colorblind child who wants to be an astronaut?
Well, I think the most important thing is don't put limitations on yourself right now based on some current set of restrictions. When I chose to be an astronaut, Canada had no astronauts.
Yeah.
We had no astronaut program. When I chose to be an astronaut, it didn't matter how tall you were, how short you were, how good, what particular strengths and weaknesses your body had. It was impossible.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I could give up because right now it doesn't happen. But I also thought, you know what, the only thing I can really work on is my own particular set of skills. And maybe someday Canada will say, we want astronauts. And who wants to go? And I thought, if that ever comes along, I want to be able to stick my hand up as high as I can possibly do it. And there used to be all sorts of things that now we can modify. Just straight vision used to be a disqualifier, and now NASA accept astronauts who have had LASIK surgery and can improve their eyes. And our depth of understanding, people that have had surgical things done to them that in the past would always be a disqualifier. Now we have enough understanding of medicine and what those do long term that those no longer are a restriction. Or the first astronauts, I was way too tall to be one of the first astronauts because the ships were so small, but the size restrictions changed. So I think if you give up on your dreams right at the very beginning because of a current set of constraints, that has a cost. Giving up on your dreams has a cost. And I think if you say, you know, I would love to be an astronaut, and in my case, what I really wanted to do was walk on the moon. That's what I wanted to do, was walk on the moon. And I still haven't walked on the moon. You know, fundamentally, I'm a failure because I have not done.
Oh my God!
I have not done what it was I set out to do. But I think everything I've done in pursuit of walking on the moon has just been a joy. It's been a delight. It's been fascinating. I've loved and it wasn't just flying on the spaceship that I loved. It's the thousands and thousands of days and steps along the way that I really, really loved. And so I wouldn't put too much concern about the end game of your dreams. Instead, I would have the dream as a way to help you shepherd your life in a direction that you like, and take pleasure in all of the steps along the way. And if you don't get to walk on the moon, that's okay. You had 1,000 steps that took you in a direction that suited who you are and helped define who you're going to be.
You say in the book as well, it's not about the sort of overarching grand goal. It's the little decisions you make every day to make yourself into the person that you know.
Well, I love that you made that decision at 9 years old, and we were talking about that earlier, about to be so focused and so clear about that at 9. It's extraordinary. And
I was both very determined but also very realistic. And so I thought, well, I'll never really be an astronaut. I mean, I'm Canadian. We don't have astronauts. But I thought, astronauts, they learn things, and I became an engineer, and they become a pilot, and learn to scuba dive, and learn to speak other languages, and climb mountains, and try and keep a healthy body. And every single one of those steps was just fun and interesting. And I thought, and all of them looks, to a 9-year-old kid, that looks like a great sequence of things to go through. And if I don't eventually fly a spaceship, that's so what, you know? And at any given moment, that could all go away anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so don't hate what's happening in the short term in hopes that someday in the distance you'll enjoy something. Try and do it the other way around if you possibly can.
I really hope that answered that question.
I realised I can make a hockey reference, which I'm very pleased about.
Oh yeah.
That you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was your main reason for going down the animated route instead of doing a show in person? Was it the tech, the audience appeal? Was it?
The reason we chose animated, it gives you so much more freedom to express a complex idea in a short time. You can be so much more nuanced in your expression of it. And there's already lots of me trying to explain things in person.
Yeah.
We've made 100 of those type of videos that are all out on YouTube, and books and music. But to me, the freedom that you get through putting together something like this, I think, is another way to take an idea and present it to people, and probably the one that has the highest bandwidth over a short period of a combination of ideas, words, images, and music. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, what is a YouTube video worth? You know, it's a lot. And so we just thought it's not the only thing we're doing, but it's hopefully a really effective and worthwhile thing to be doing.
And I think it talks to like everybody, right? Like children, adults. Like
I think we think in cartoons.
I
mean, essentially, if you consider the images that are in your head about previous things that have happened in your life, they're not a completely beautiful, nuanced, high-definition, three-dimensional representation. They're sort of a cartoon version of what actually happened. That's how we visualize things. At least that's what goes on inside my own head.
I'm going to take that because I'm going to take that for me because it's like, I can really relate to that. That's good. That's cool.
My whole life to me is a cartoon.
One big cartoon. One big cartoon in Chris Hadfield's head. That's amazing.
A Rocky montage.
So we do have a question from. So I'm going to show you this picture first. Let me get this open. Gosh, it's gone a bit crazy here. So this is a drawing from Otoni, age 6. Wow. So this is you, Chris, with a toothache. And the question is, let's see what the question says at the top.
Question says, has anyone ever had a toothache in space?
Yes.
It's a beautiful drawing, and I don't know if you want to show it to the camera. They got my mustache and my tie.
I'm
just
very,
right.
If I go really close up to the camera here.
That's a hell of a drawing.
That's a beautiful and quick sketch of me.
Amazed with my pink back.
Probably done with fairly basic software.
Looks like paper. Yeah, I think.
We're worried about toothaches in space. If you have a pressure change, if you had a little bit of if someone put a filling on your tooth and they inadvertently trapped some air in between your tooth and the filling, then if suddenly the pressure drops, then that will become heavier pressure, and you can all of a sudden have nerve pain inside your teeth that you would never have if you stayed at sea level. So we have very aggressive astronaut dentists who before a space flight will go through and remove all your old fillings and put in new ones for you. Just sort of recreationally. Seems that way. Just to make sure that we launch for space with as good and healthy a set of teeth as possible. So hopefully you won't. But you do run the risk of breaking a tooth up there, of course, or something untoward happening. And our crew, one of the crew members actually did break a tooth while we were up there. So we got to do some sort of minor medical work, and we got to get out the little, we trained in dentistry up there. I can go in and freeze your mouth, and I can do basic surgery and pull a tooth. If I wouldn't recommend me, but I can do it if I need to. And but we went in and built a new replacement where the piece of the tooth had broken off in amongst our crew. So it wasn't so much a toothache, just a broken piece. But it's not that astronauts don't get toothaches. Of course, we take care of our teeth and brush our teeth, but we also go to the dentist specifically to make sure that not only are our bodies as healthy as possible, but even our teeth are as ready as possible for spaceflight.
You have to train as paramedics as well.
Yeah, anybody at any time. One of our big risks, if you think about here, pass me your water bottle. Of course, here the water stays in the bottom of this bottle. If I spill it, it goes on the floor. But if we were in weightlessness and you had this bottle open, the water would come out and start floating around the room, and it is just as likely to go into the electrical fixture in the room as it is anywhere else. And so you can have an electrical short any time, and the water's not going to go anywhere. And so you can get electrocuted on a spaceship anytime. It's one of the risks. So how do you deal with someone? And electrocution can cause, your heart to stop and all sorts of burns and problems. And so we need to train for any type of medical eventuality. We try and launch healthy people, but we still want to be trained. And so, we train in emergency medicine, and then hopefully as many basic medical skills as possible. And then I worked in emergency at a hospital, and as people would get hurt and cut and in accidents and shot and things and came into the hospital, it was actually me standing there pretending I was competent to give them an IV and diagnose what was going on and intubate them and catheterize them or whatever needed to be done.
Wow.
Hanging from a...
No, just standing there on the floor.
So, Chris,
simulating zero.
What, in your opinion, gets people the most engaged in learning about science?
What gets people the most engaged in learning
there's been a lot of comments about
science? I think a fundamental curiosity in why and how things work, a dissatisfaction with the answer that somebody's given you, an observable disconnect between what somebody told you and what you see, and maybe a dissatisfaction with the fact that something doesn't exist yet. The software that Dan's been using for this, it didn't need to exist. And it wasn't going to create itself. But someone, or the huge team of people 50 years ago that it would take to be able to make an animation like this, they were irritated with the process, and they tried to find ways to come up with some cool new way, and someone came up with some idea and somebody else came up with it, and suddenly you can invent something that allows you to do something that otherwise was impossible. And if you never show somebody that impossible things happen, then I think you've really denied them something important. But if you're a 9-year-old kid and you can see something happen in front of your eyes that up until very recently was impossible, and it only became possible because of human invention and human creativity, like, a heart transplant. When I was a kid, it was the very first heart transplant. And to think that we actually had invented a way to save someone's life by using a part of a person who had already died and put it in and allow that person to live, to me that was what an incredible invention. And I thought, well, what else can we do? Or how do we do that? Or how it set off a whole cascade of new thoughts in my head. And so I think presenting as often as possible the wonder of creativity and invention, the recognition that we can make impossible things happen, and then inspire people to then learn all the basic things necessary to allow them to be part of that group of people that makes impossible things happen. That's kind of at the whole core of the motivation, but also the discovery that comes from it.
Awesome. So we do have another question from Thomas Brockhurst, aged 5. When you sleep in space, do you dream you're floating?
When you sleep in space, do you dream you're floating?
Yeah.
I don't remember dreaming that I was floating. Maybe the opposite is true, Thomas. When you come back to Earth, the first night you get home, of course, you get into a bed. You haven't floated in a bed or slept in a bed for a long time, and it's kind of weird. But when I was just starting to wake up in the morning, when it was just the first inkling of being awake, I had this sensation that I was floating above my bed.
Wow.
I think because when you're standing up, it's pretty clear that gravity's squishing you down. But when you're floating in a nice, comfortable bed or suspended by a mattress, you can sort of fool yourself into thinking you're floating. And my body forgot that it was on Earth. And I actually had the very clear sensation the next morning that I was floating above my bed. And then as I got more and more awake, I realized, oh, no, I'm back here on Earth. But then the next morning I woke up, but it didn't last as long. And after about 3 or 4 mornings, my body had completely remembered that it was back on Earth, and I didn't feel like I was floating anymore. So I think it was maybe the opposite. When you come back to Earth, sometimes you dream about floating.
Yeah. So having spent part of your life in space, how do you judge the depiction of space action in blockbusters? Is it realistic or no?
So the movies that portray space, most of them are just the same as X-Men or Spider-Man or whatever. They're not intended to be accurate. They're not documentaries. They're not training movies for astronauts. They're just fantasy.
Yeah.
Interstellar even, or they allow us to dream. They're sort of a visual animation of the things that we haven't figured out how to do yet. I think what's good about them is they really show what we're actually interested in.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, big things. What would it look like to get that close to a discontinuity in space and time, and what would it be like if you were left alone on Mars, or if a piece of debris wrecked your spaceship and you were caught outside. And it's not quite so important that it's an absolutely perfect, cut and dried representation of reality as we know it. To me, sometimes it's good just to let your mind go free. But if what's happening on the screen is something that is currently real, if it's a space shuttle or a space station or a Russian spaceship or a Chinese spaceship, then for me to see it portrayed incorrectly or dismissively, or if you just choose to break the laws of physics, then it ruins it for me. And I'm the wrong guy, of course, to be watching the movie because that's my specialty. But what I compare it to is if you were watching a person driving a car in a movie and they turned the wheel this way and the car went that way, everybody in the theater would go, "What? That's not how it works." Didn't those guys? Didn't they even do their homework? That's not how cars work. And so quite a few of the space movies look like that because the car goes the wrong way all the time in the space movies. But I'm not, it's probably like a surgeon watching a medical movie or a policeman watching a police movie. Everybody sees the inaccuracies of just trying to tell a story. Some movies are worse than others.
Yes.
Some are just a complete fantasy. And the only last part of that is, if so long as it is just the suspension of disbelief in a fantasy, that's okay. But if the movie actually starts to take the place of education for people, if people form their conclusions about the reality of something that actually exists, and the movie has deliberately made it inaccurate or mocked it or belittled it or trivialized it somehow, then I think actually you're doing everybody a big disservice. And so that kind of irks me as well, especially as someone who has done my best to try and explain the reality of things. But it's not really their job in making a movie. Their movie's just there to sell tickets and entertain people.
Exactly.
We don't want governments to make policy by watching Jurassic Park and going, no DNA research.
No, we all know. Let's not do that one. So we do have a lovely little gentleman here that would like to come and ask a question. So Harrison, and he's also done a little drawing for you as well.
Harrison.
So Harrison, do you want to squeeze in?
Yeah,
maybe we'll swap.
Grab a spot there.
We'll swap. So
hello, Harrison.
What question would you like to ask Commander Chris Hadfield?
What is it like in space, and what does it feel like working on this project?
What is it like in space, and what does it feel like working on this project? being in space is, I was kind of worried, Harrison, because I decided to be an astronaut when I was about your age, and I worked at it my whole life, but I was a little bit concerned, what if I get there and I don't like it? You know, like, what if I've worked on this for so many years and I get there and I find out, I don't even like this. This wasn't nearly what I thought it was going to be. So I was a little bit worried about that. And so when you ask me what's it like in space, number one is it's magic because you can fly. You can push off with your finger and fly across the room. You can do 1,000 somersaults. It's like you are Superboy. Just suddenly you can push with your toes and soar forever, or you can spin 1,000 times. So being magic is good. And then you're doing something really, really hard, but you're doing it well because everybody trained you. So you sort of feel like you're writing an exam and you know the answer to every question. So there's a really nice feeling when you're good at something and when you've worked at it a long time. So it's magic and you're feeling confident because they've made you good at something. And then the last part is every time you float to the window, a new part of the world is going by. There's all of Africa. You can see right from one end of the River Nile to the other just by looking out the window. Or you can see where continents are ripping apart from each other, where Africa and Asia are ripping apart because of continental drift. You can see all the outback of Australia, or you can see a meteorite burn up in the atmosphere underneath you. You can see the whole world. And that combination, it turned out not only to be fun, but better than I dreamed it would be. And I had pretty big dreams about how good it was going to be. So it looks like you put a lot of thought into spaceflight. And what I see here is a space station with the Canadarm on it. That's very nice. And
next to a black hole.
And there's also
and a black hole.
Yeah.
Nice. And it looks like, boy, a whole sequence of things. There's a globe of the Earth. And is that the moon over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see the moon and a rocket ship and
Saturn.
And Saturn, right? There's Saturn right over there with a big spot in the middle, and and it looks like there are these meteors,
Asteroids and shooting stars.
Asteroids and shooting stars coming down to Earth, and I think it's delightful that you know about all these things, and that
asteroid field right here.
and an asteroid field, right? I am not going to drive through that asteroid field. That looks like a bad place for my spaceship.
Yeah.
But thank you for drawing this for me and for all of the thought that went into it.
Thank you, Harrison. A little round of applause for Harrison.
Thanks,
Harrison. Okay. So we are slowly hitting the witching hour. So I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to plough through the other bits that have come in. But there is one question that I did want to ask. Where will the series be aired? When will the first episode be available?
The teaser trailer hopefully will go up later tonight, and that'll be on Chris's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then the
So if you just go to YouTube and put in Chris Hadfield, it'll head to our YouTube channel where virtually all of the videos that we've made, the one from space, the music videos, the explanatory videos, a lot of them, they're all there already. So Chris Hadfield under YouTube. Yep.
And the finished episodes, once they are online, which we're looking at sort of mid-February, they will be in a playlist on your channel, so you can view them
so all the
on
episodes
YouTube.
will be free on YouTube. So just subscribe to Chris's YouTube channel. And then we have a Patreon on patreon.com if you just go and type in It's Not Rocket Science. And you can subscribe to that and get a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff,
Wonderful.
storyboards, all sorts of videos and stuff.
Wonderful. So, just a quick one, because I saw it and I was like, I've got to ask this question. What do you think the 9th planet should be called, Chris?
The way that we chose to name Pluto, I thought was delightful. I had a competition of young people all over, and for with different ideas and why you might want to name a planet. And the planets have been named, after mythical figures, and so it's not up to me to decide. I really think that's a lovely thing to crowdsource, a lovely thing to take ideas from all around the world. What's important to us now? What symbology do we see in the sky? And the beauty of it is there's as Harrison drew, there's almost an unlimited number of planets out there, and so in truth, every single one of us should get to name one.
Oh wow, yeah, wow. Oh my gosh, I want to say thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time out and coming over to share this with us tonight. We were all a little bit disbelieving, and it's just like, wow. So thank you so much.
The people in this room have created an invention that allows what could be a completely selfish thought, or someone with the inability to truly let somebody else in on what they're visualizing or thinking. They've created a tool that allows it to so easily or in an unprecedented way with ease to get out where other people can look at it and see it and think about it and interpret it. A sharing of creativity, and I have huge respect for that. And for these two who are taking our poorly articulated ideas and turning them into something that not only will be delightful the first time you see it, but will be something you want to go back and watch and will last and will be instructional of its own. So thank you for the invitation to be part of it today, and thank you for all the work that led into our very first little snippet of what this is going to look like.
And I also thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. And also a special thank you to Evan as well. Thank you so much as well for this. We really, wow, thank you. So everyone in this room, I want a big round of applause for our guests tonight. And like Chris said, be sure to go over and check his YouTube channel, Colonel Chris Hadfield, to see the trailer. So we will see you again sometime soon online. I want to say thank you very much for joining wherever you are around the world. Have a good evening, good day, good afternoon, wherever you are. So good night. Bye.
The world is round. Bye-bye.